emotions are a problem. Your emotions are a problem and they ruin everyone's experience of working with you. Something a former boss told me after a particularly grueling week at work. Now, it wasn't the first time I'd let that kind of comment slide, but that one stuck. Because the truth is, I have a type. Not in the tall, dark, handsome way. I mean at work. For years, I was drawn to a certain kind of leader. You'll recognise the type. Fast-talking, razor-sharp, very charismatic. And my kryptonite was the wildly creative ones, the ones that could sketch a vision of the future on a napkin and spin magic out of the air and make you feel lucky just to be near it. When you're in their orbit, you want to impress them. You work longer, harder, faster, and the reality is that they hold all the cards. One raised eyebrow can set you soaring or destroy you. Because the thing I realised about my type, to put it bluntly, is they were brilliant arseholes. The people that get the hard-hitting results but leave people bruised along the way. They'll wow the room, they'll land the pitch, they'll make the sale, but they will also belittle and bully and bulldoze. And the trap is that we let them. We say, yeah, they're a nightmare, but they deliver, they're brilliant. And it's that but that keeps them in power. The company of a brilliant arsehole can feel intoxicating. When you're in favour, it's like the sun is shining on you, you're unstoppable. Fall out of favour, and that quickly evaporates. You go from feeling 10 feet tall to questioning everything you ever thought you knew about yourself. And that's what happened to me. I second-guessed everything. I even called old bosses and colleagues and I asked, was this me? Was I too emotional? Did everyone hate working with me? It was a unanimous no, but it was too late. It had got in my head. And it got so far in my head that I even tried taking antidepressants in an attempt to dull my emotions, to make myself more palatable. Anyway, after one shitty email too many, I snapped, I quit, and I said, never again. But it wasn't just about trying to break my own pattern. It was about trying to help fix cultures that enable it, because it is a pattern. And what you see with this pattern is that those hailed as champions of creativity and innovation and empathy publicly are creating a very different reality behind the scenes. So why do we let it happen? Well, none of us are innocent. You might have worked for one. You might have been on the receiving end of one. You might have been one. You may still be one. Or you may have been complicit, laughed along, turned a blind eye because they deliver and they're brilliant. And, you know, to be fair, sometimes it's complicated because they are brilliant and they do deliver. And we tell ourselves that's just the price that we pay for genius. And in rare cases, yes, there's a legitimate conversation to be had. If they're curing cancer, let's have a chat about leeway. But the reality is they are very rarely curing cancer or saving mankind. They are selling ad space. They're creating PR campaigns for Rice Krispies and rebranding margarine. It's not exactly life or death stuff. And yet sometimes it actually is life or death stuff. The deadliest plane crash in history happened in 1977 in Tenerife, where 583 people were killed. The investigations from the accident showed that the co-pilots didn't feel that they could challenge the captain when they saw the risk. And it's not just in aviation. In 2003, the British Medical Journal published a report which showed that surgical staff weren't reporting serious errors they'd witnessed out of fear of blame or intimidation from senior surgeons. Underreporting wasn't the exception, it was the norm. And then as recently as 2023, the NHS staff survey showed that 30% of staff still didn't feel safe to speak up when they'd seen unsafe clinical practice. 30% of staff silenced, not because they didn't see the risk, but because of the power dynamic. That's the catastrophic end of the spectrum. Elsewhere, it's smaller, but it's everywhere. It's crying in the toilets at work. It's dreading opening your emails on a Monday morning. It's brilliant people walking away from jobs that they love. Different stakes, same dynamics. The Health and Safety Executive reported last year that 16 million working days were lost due to work-related stress, anxiety, and depression. 750,000 people signed off sick, not because they broke a bone, but because work broke them. And behind every number is a person. It's a very common story. It starts with the Sunday scaries, a knot in your stomach before the week's even begun. The nights get longer, sleep gets harder to find, food loses its taste, and energy drains until finally your body forces the quit that your mind could never give you, just burnt out. You end up having to walk away from a job that you loved, maybe a career you'd spent decades building up a reputation in, gone. That's the human cost. There's a hidden cost that ripples everywhere. At work, people stop speaking up, they shrink, they leave quietly. In politics, we continually elect leaders that ooze confidence, but there's red flags everywhere. And in culture, often the loudest voices and ideas dominate while we lose others in silence. I've laughed along, I've protected the star player. I've said, yeah, they're difficult, but they're brilliant. And every time you do that, you lose voices and perspectives that we can't afford to lose. We don't do it because we're bad people. We do it because we're human and we are wired with psychological potholes. Psychologists have studied these behaviours for decades, so you have the halo effect. You assume because someone is good here, they'll be good here. Talented, must be trustworthy. Confident, must be competent. You have moral licensing. We say, well, they've achieved so much here, I think they've earned a pass here. Let's let them off the hook. What's one person left behind? Then you have self-preservation. Sometimes it's not even about protecting them at all. It's about protecting yourself, because speaking up can feel like career suicide. Suddenly you challenge the person in power. Suddenly you're the difficult one. You're the reputation that's on the line. It's a very cruel irony. And then you have confidence versus competence. Research has shown that certainty is often rewarded over actual ability, which is why, for example, Elizabeth Holmes, founder of biotech startup Theranos, was able to stand on a stage, put a black turtleneck on, lower her voice an octave, and convince a room full of America's most seasoned investors to hand over more than $700 million on a blood test that didn't work. And then you have denial. We tell ourselves, they didn't mean it, it's just how they are. It's not that bad. Because if we admit the damage, we then have to do something about it. So what can we do? Here's a few very simple things that I try that I invite you to try too. 1, spot the cost, not just the shine. Next time someone dazzles, ask yourself, what's the cost here? What's being drowned out? Who am I not hearing from? For example, in a meeting, next time someone's being praised for a big win, say, that's great. I'd love to hear from the rest of the team too. Number 2, widen the circle. Make space for the quiet ones, the deep thinkers, the introverts, the people that aren't going to fight to get their voice heard in a room. For example, when you're with mates or at work, notice who keeps getting interrupted and go back and say, hang on, I don't think they've finished yet. I'd love to know what you were going to say. Bring someone in who hasn't spoken yet. Love to know your take. Number 3, reward the right kind of brilliance. It's not just the loudest or the slickest. It's the people in the background doing the invisible grind that are bringing people up and leaving people taller, not smaller, and leaving a room stronger than when they walked in. For example, in feedback, don't just praise the person at the front of the project. Praise the person behind the scenes. That was a great win. Thank you, Alex, for pulling together the insights that shaped it. Improving the performance of everyone in your team by 1%. will make a bigger cumulative impact on productivity than letting one brilliant arsehole reign free. None of those are grand gestures. They're tiny little micro interventions that you can start doing tomorrow that will massively change how people are seen, heard, and remembered around you. This isn't about tearing people down. This is about widening our definition of brilliance, because it isn't just what dazzles on a stage or wows in a meeting. It's about care. It's about integrity. It's about the ability to bring out the best in other people. The brilliance bias doesn't just shape who we are, it shapes who we become. So now I've changed my type. I'm drawn to leaders who listen more than they talk, who leave people taller, not smaller, who are brilliant, but without the arsehole bit. And next time you catch yourself saying, yeah, they're a bit of a nightmare, but they're brilliant, ask yourself, at what cost? If it's other people's brilliance, it's never worth it. Thank you.